Hello everyone! Today I'm back with another video. Today I'm focusing on 4 characters I've designed. I don't have definitive names for them, so I can just name them A, B, C, and D right now. They're all characters for a mystery novel I want to write someday, but I'm still pretty terrible at writing mysteries, but I'm motivated to work on that. I really like the characters and the premise of the story, so yeah, I definitely want to write this story someday. So without further ado, let's jump into it. First up, we have our protagonist, character A. Before I can explain her personality, though, I have to talk about her background and the general premise of her story. So the general gist is that A comes from a family of very successful detectives. Her uncle is a private inspector, and her mother is a well-known detective. Well, I'm really saying detective a lot. A really looks up to them and aspires to be a detective herself. One day, a few weeks before her sophomore year of high school starts, she overhears her mother and uncle discussing a peculiar case. They've gotten news that people within the school have been going missing. It's a very well-kept secret, too. The people within the school, boarding school, all know about it, but the news has not traveled very far out of it. By the way, the school is a boarding school. No newspaper has covered the event, and it's likely that A's uncle and mother are some of the first people outside of the school to know about this. They've decided to take on the case, but they're worried that they might be too suspicious, as 2 adult detectives going to the school would alert suspicion and alert whoever is doing this and give that person time to plan. They need someone to infiltrate the school, someone who wouldn't be suspected as They need someone to take on the case, but they're worried that they might be too suspicious, as 2 adult detectives going to the school would alert whoever is doing this and give them time to plan. They need someone to infiltrate the school, someone who wouldn't be suspected as a detective, someone like a student. So A overhears all this news, and she makes up her mind that she wants to go to this boarding school so she can infiltrate the place and solve the crime. She approaches her uncle and mother and pitches the idea to them. At first, they were quite reluctant. A was intelligent and had solved several little mysteries before, but she didn't do anything significant, just little tiny, just little puzzles, But she's really never taken on anything close to this series, to this dangerous before, and it would be quite reckless for them to send her to a place where she could be kidnapped. But after a lot of convincing, they decided to let her go. They told her that she was only there to collect information regarding the kidnapping and report it to them, and she is not, under any circumstance, to go after the kidnapper himself, or herself, I guess. I just use him for convenience sake. So yeah, that's the general background/premise for A. Now let's get into her actual personality. So when I first came up with A, I made her serious and determined. She was a leader of the group, but she was sort of stubborn and didn't really get along with everyone. Many months later, I read The Sweetness at the Bottom of the Pie by Alan Bradley, and I found the main character, Flavia, very clever and charismatic. This made me feel that A was stiff and uncharismatic in comparison. I wanted to make her more interesting and charismatic, but I didn't really want to make her a copy of Flavia. After talking with my tutor, however, I realized that some of my writing problems with my characters can actually be their defining trait and deepen their characters more. After some brainstormings, this is what I decided as A's personality and backstory. So A has always idealized her mother and uncle. They were confident, charismatic leaders. They always had everything together and they never fell apart. They had a plan for everything, and even if they didn't, they always knew how to act. They were the type of detectives Flavia was in The Sweetness at the Bottom of the Pie, but A wasn't that type of person. She's prone to anxiety, she's insecure, and she tends to unravel when her plan doesn't go as expected. She doesn't always know what to do, and she puts on a persona of this serious, determined leader that I first envisioned her as, but underneath it all, she's incredibly anxious. She feels like she doesn't have any want to talk to at this new school, since she doesn't want her mother and uncle to think she's weak or incompetent by opening up about her problems. And she doesn't talk to her detective team about it either, because she thinks it's more of a personal relationship, and she wants them to think of her as a confident leader. The thing about these characters is that they're meant to embody a type of intelligence. So A's skills are that she's observant and she's very good at gathering information and methodically piecing them together, kind of like a typical detective. She's kind of half the aspect of a typical detective. She's good at making plans and figuring stuff out, but her weaknesses, however, is that it's the stuff I said earlier. She's not as adaptable as some of her teammates. She's stiff. When things don't go to plan, she will start panicking and unraveling. She would have a good plan, but when stuff doesn't go her plan, she just starts getting anxious. She doesn't know what to do, and she starts panicking and unraveling, and just things just keep falling apart, which make her unravel more. And a long story short, she's good at the technical theory of detectiving and piecing together things together, but she's not very good with being flexible and confident and adapting to situations. This is what I said about using my writing problems with characters to make them more three-dimensional. I saw she was stiff and not very charismatic, so that's kind of her insecurities. She's insecure that she's not very charismatic and adaptable, and that she's an anxious mess. So that's kind of how and she wants to be that type of person because her mother and uncle are that type of person. So I kind of made her more three-dimensional in that way. Okay, next up we have the first character in our supporting cast. So starting up we have B. Unlike A, he's not placed in the school for any detective reasons. He's just there because he goes there. It's a family tradition to study at this particular boarding school. He's usually very carefree and social, but when his sister, let's just call her G, become one of the people who goes missing, he becomes extra alert and decides to put his smarts and his detective skills in to use, so that he could find and get back his sister. Now, before I continue, I just want to add something. And that is that, I joined my four main characters, A, B, C, and D, in a picture, but the footage is a little bit too short for this video, so I've added a few recordings of other things. I've just wanted to mention that just in case you're confused. Now back to the actual topic at hand. That leads to how he and A meet. So, when A comes to school, B notices things about her that leads him to be suspicious. He wants to get to know her better and see if she can help him get closer to the truth about what happened to his sister. One day, he approaches A and suggests that they should be friends. A agrees because she knows that B has been to the school for a long time and knows the people here very well. The thing is, as I said, A is very good at piecing together she's very good at piecing together. As I said, A is very good at piecing together puzzles, but she isn't very good at interacting with people and being social. Besides, she wants to keep a low profile, so she doesn't want to be mincing with too many people. And she's also new. She doesn't really know anyone, but she also needs to know who these people are to further her detective work and know what she's dealing with and be able to interact with people so that she can do her detective work. So she needs someone who's not only familiar with the place, but also social and capable of knowing the people here very well. So B is a perfect candidate. Remember when I said that all of these characters represent a certain type of intelligence? Well, B represents social intelligence. B is very good at getting along with people and knowing what makes them tick. He doesn't like manipulating people, but he'll do it if he has to. In a sense, both A and B are using each other for their own plans and thinking the other party are oblivious to the fact that they're being used. A is using B for his social capabilities and his familiarity with the school, and B is using A for her potential ability to solve his sister's case. Speaking of B's sister, let's talk a little bit about B's relationship with G, his sister, So the same as B and G is that they don't have a super close relationship with their parents, especially with B. Like, their parents weren't abusive, but they were just a little bit distant and not very family-oriented. This was especially the case after, B turned. They weren't particularly abusive. This was especially the case after B turned 2. G is the older sibling, being 3 years older, and G and B's parents were more caring and family-oriented before B turned 2, which means G got more attention in her early years. That and the fact that G was just naturally incredibly warm and social gave her an incredibly caring personality and made her securely attached. She knew that her parents loved her, but they were just very career-oriented. B had less attention from his parents in the beginning of his life, so his sister was like the person she was close to. He was closest with, and G kind of took on a bit of a motherly role. She was the one who made him feel safe, securely attached, and made him understand that their parents do care about him, and he can rely on his parents on hard times, even though they're not super warm and friendly and with them all the time. So she was a part of the reason why B is as social as he is. They were incredibly close, which made B even more determined to solve her case when she ultimately goes missing. Anyways, that's all I have about B. Next up, we have character C. I don't have as much information on her as I do the other characters, but I do have a few things to say about her. For one, she's much older than the other main characters. The others are about 15 to 16, while C is in her 20s. She works as an office manager in the school that A, B, C, and D goes to, and it has experience in coding and cyber work. That's all I have on her for today. Last but certainly not least, we have D. Just like A, D is from a family of detectives placed in the boarding school for the case. He's placed several months before A was, however, when the case was just a blossoming suspicion and not a whole issue, so he was at the school during most of the kidnappings. A was told that someone else was also placed at this school for the case. A figured out that it was D before D knew that A is here for the case, and A had to tell D that she was here for detective business very discreetly so that people won't know about it. Alright, now I'll talk about D's personality. As I said earlier, D is from a family of detectives and goes to the boarding school for detective reasons, but that's pretty much where the similarities end. A good way to describe him and his relationship with A is that when it comes to intelligence and detective work and solving things, whatever A is good at, D is bad at, and whatever A is bad at, D is good at. Like, A is very good at methodically solving puzzles and the technical stuff of being a detective, while D is not very good at that. He's not as serious about solving cases as A and B. He tends to not take his detective homework seriously and sometimes slack off. This seems to aggravate A and seems to be the reason A often bickers with D on the outside. The deeper reason, however, is that D reminds A of her insecurities. D is charismatic, flexible, and good at thinking on his feet. He's confident and does not panic at the sight of problems. He isn't as good of a leader, but he reminds A of the things that she wants to be but isn't. That and the fact that their personalities are just naturally incompatible makes them clash quite a bit. A part of D's personality is also due to the fact that he's not under as much pressure since he doesn't really want to be a detective. I mean, he likes detective stuff and he respects the job, but it's not really his life goal. And also his parents are also a little bit more honest about their faults with him, and he doesn't put them on a pedestal. Anyways, that's all I have for today. I really like these characters and designs, and I hope you do too. I'm really struggling in writing the mysteries, so if you guys have any tips, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. Bye!